We've all been there, standing in front of the sprawling selection of energy drinks at the local gas station, knowing we're about to dump the equivalent of jet fuel into our stomachs. But man, oh man, do those things get you wired. I love energy drinks. Most people love energy drinks. They're soda, but for some reason, less shameful. Yet, have you ever looked at the sprawling selection of chemical energy water and thought, how did we get here? Well, I have, and today you will learn about energy drinks with me. To start, how do we define an energy drink? One would assume it's straightforward because, well, it's a drink that gives you energy, right? Wrong. Well, kinda. If you go by that definition, then we have to add in a whole different world. The bean water, that being coffee. Yes, coffee is a drink that gives you energy, so by definition, it would be an energy drink, right? Again, wrong. It's coffee. It's different. If I asked someone to get me an energy drink from the gas station and they brought me back a fucking coffee, I would be justifiably upset, though the drink would indeed serve the purpose of giving me energy in the form of a drink. It's kind of an oxymoron, but we will be excluding coffee today. Energy drinks tend to have a few extra ingredients beyond caffeine anyways. Loads of sweeteners like sugar, aspartame, taurine, B vitamins, the list goes on. If you can't read anything in the ingredient beyond water, well, that, my friend, is a proper energy drink. So let's wind the clock back a bit to the 1950s, in Japan, of all places. As you can imagine, Japan was a country going through a lot of changes after the war. Good old Uncle Sam was helping them become a modern Western nation, and a byproduct of that was the banning of certain substances, one of which was amphetamines. Of course it was amphetamines. Well, as you can imagine, the energy levels and overall productivity of the workforce took quite the hit, and tea was not cutting it. So, seeing a demand for quick energy in the market, the Taicho company invented an energy tonic called lipovitin, or maybe lipovitin. And this substance would serve as the foundation for all energy drinks to follow. What separated lipovitin from coffee or tea were its additional ingredients of 1,000 milligrams of a substance called taurine, which is a sulfur-containing amino acid antioxidant, and various B vitamins, which can supply an instantaneous burst of energy. But the most important ingredient was caffeine, and the bottle contained just 50 milligrams per serving. That's less than a can of Coca-Cola. Lipovitin is still sold today, and from what I can see online, it's quite gross because it's less of an energy and more of like cough syrup energy drink. Yuck. The energy drink wouldn't really start to look familiar until over a decade in Thailand, of all places. On a particularly fateful day in 1976, a Thai pharmacist named Chaleo Uvidia, I said that wrong, would get a burst of, quote, divine inspirations, his words, not mine, and would create an energy-boosting beverage, not syrup, with similar ingredients to lipovitin. His new beverage would depict two red guar charging into each other, and it would be called Red Guar. What's a guar, you ask? Well, it's a native bull species in Thailand. Red Guar was very successful in Thailand, who had already adopted a culture of energy drinks, with the other notable competitor being Krating Dang. Both companies had a large focus on the blue-collar sector and construction workers, who loved the energy boost it provided. But it would be a white-collar businessman from Austria named Dietrich Mateschitz, who I will just call Shits from now on, who on another fateful day in 1982 would purchase the local drink in Thailand in an attempt to cure his jet lag. And to no shock, the dump of caffeine kept him very wired. Shits was so impressed by the beverage and saw an abundance of business potential with it, so he reached out to Chaleo with an offer to work together. And 2 years later, Red Bull was born. Schytz insisted upon renaming the company to Red Bull for Western audiences, and a slight changing of the formula, adding more sugar and caffeine and switching from small bottles to sleek cans. Red Bull was first introduced in the West at California. Red Bull's formula would lay out the groundwork for future Western energy drink companies, not just with ingredients, but with their interesting approach to advertising as well. We need to take a side note here and have a crash course on modern advertising. Back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, brands tried really hard to sell the value of their product through advertising. 9 out of 10 dentists recommend this, or this car can carry 6 people and the dog on vacation. It was much more honest and literal, but didn't do its job as effectively. So around the 1980s, advertising as we know it would come around and become the dominant form. And this was called lifestyle advertising. Essentially, lifestyle advertising doesn't do anything to tell the customer why the product is good or what it can do for them in a practical sense, but rather it sells an image of association, the Marlboro Man being a famous early example of this. Cigarettes had become a quote-unquote feminine thing in the industry. To combat this, launched the Marlboro Man, a really cool, hyper-masculine cowboy that only smoked, you guessed it, Marlboros. The brand wasn't trying to display their quality or their price, none of that. It was trying to sell an idea that is associated with the brand, and it worked extremely well. So why do I bring this up? Because Red Bull may be one of the greatest lifestyle advertising companies of all time. Let's stop for a second again. What do you think of when you think of Red Bull? Is it a Formula One race car? Maybe pro skaters? BMX riding? A guy jumping from outer space? I think you get the point. You think of very intense extreme sports and stunts. And no shock, this was extremely intentional. In the early 2000s, they made an active attempt to sponsor every extreme sport, obscure or not, and did a great job at it until Red Bull became synonymous with the extreme. But their marketing team didn't stop there. Man, these guys must have been on amphetamines, or maybe 100 Red Bulls, because they also saw another large market opportunity in clubs and college campuses, i.e. the party scene. Red Bull's teams would purposely have popular clubs around Europe and the US leave out empty Red Bull cans on weekends to promote the drink. Vodka Red Bulls became a new item for late-night partygoers to get a second wind of energy to extend their nights. Students at universities suddenly found beautiful women handing out free Red Bulls across campus, finding the drink to be useful for late nights, whether it be partying or studying. And to top it all off, no marketing campaign is complete without a catchy slogan.
Red Bull gives you wings.
By 2001, Red Bull had sold 1 billion, with a B, cans, or another metric based off their popular 8-ounce can size. 77 billion milligrams of caffeine had been consumed. And the market took notice of this success and a new niche in the beverage industry, as it wouldn't take long for competition to spring up through their seeming monopoly on caffeination. This one's a little bit of a quick deviation here, but 5-Hour Energy would pop up shortly after in the form of these little tiny shot-like bottles. It would be less of a drink and more a return to the syrup, much like Lipovitamin. And it was targeted more at the physically active adult world. They were very medium-sized and never took up much of the market, but they're worth mentioning, so they're a flash in the pan. But soon, some real big dogs would come to sit at the table. In 2001, Rockstar Energy Drink would be founded by American businessman Russell Weiner, and a year following, Monster Energy would be founded by the Hanson Natural Company, another US-based brand. They would just rename themselves to Monster, which is much better. The two new American rival companies shared a lot in common with both each other and the big dog, or should I say, Bull. Both of these new brands would essentially copy Red Bull's formula, of course, with flavor changes as well as their marketing tactics as well, but with their own little twists. Red Bull, God forbid we forget, is a European company. America, especially after certain events in 2001, was a place that really liked American things. And America is known for doing things bigger and better. Oh yeah! On the note of America doing things bigger and better to the point where it takes things too far, I need to do another sidetrack here. I need to mention the true chaotic evil of all energy drinks, Four Loko. Unlike other energy drinks, Four Loko was exclusively for partying. It had 156 milligrams of caffeine and the alcohol content equivalent to that of 4.5 beers. And it was really cheap. As you can imagine, this was very hot and a massive problem, which boiled over in 2010 as a 15-year-old tragically would pass away due to overconsumption of the drink. This was never proven in court, but it's very, very, very clear that that's what happened. And extreme pressure from colleges across the U.S. Four Loko would be forced to remove the caffeine from their drink in 2010. Okay, so let's get back to the main timeline now. Rockstar and Monster's first notable change was from the tiny little baby 8-ounce European-sized cans to
Extra big-ass 16-ounce cans.
because who in America doesn't like big cans? Haha. And here's the kicker. Double the can size also meant double the caffeine content, with both products offering 160 milligrams of caffeine opposed to Red Bull's standard 8-ounce can offering 80. Just like their European counterpart, the brands had a focus on the extreme, music, and college students, but took their own little Americana route. I'd like to pause here and clarify that they're not the same company. They just pretty much did the exact same thing on two sides of the same coin marketing-wise. They both sponsored the same shit. Big difference was that Monster was just a lot more edgy, and we really liked edgy stuff in the 2000s. Both would start sponsoring events like live music festivals, much more American extreme sports like dirt bikes or off-road racing teams or skateboarding. Man, much more. But as time went on, Rockstar would eventually be purchased by the Pepsi Company, who did not keep up with the edgelord energy drink competitors. Monster would go on to sponsor many, many, many more events that they found would help build the brand's extremely edgy identity. Some that I'd like to point out are Monster Jam, aka Monster Trucks, you get it? The X Games, which was an extreme sports competition that was extremely popular in the 2010s. More Supercross, they even sponsored the popular Supercross show/team Nitro Circus. The UFC, which was a relatively new cage fighting promotion, very inherently edgy. Skateboarding, edgy. And what's this? This is different. Professional gaming teams. Well, that's not that edgy. By the 2010s, a new and rather unexpected energy market had popped up. Esports, and by extension, gamers as a whole. Who would have guessed that staying up for hours on end playing hyper-competitive video games would be a market for high caffeine content drinks? Well, Monster did, but so did another newcomer, G Fuel. And what's the G stand for? Gamer. It was at this point that the energy drink industry would start to shift, or rather expand, its target audience. For nearly 3 decades, energy drinks had been synonymous with the extreme, largely thanks to Red Bull, Monster, and Rockstar's lifestyle marketing images. But hyper-caffeinated beverages go beyond just Formula One, dirt bikes, and skateboarding. In 2012, American businessman Cliff Morgan would launch a brand new energy drink with a much different approach to advertising and a different target audience. For many years, the meme of gamer fuel had largely been associated with the soda brand Mountain Dew, which, side note, might as well be an energy drink, as a 12-ounce can has more caffeine than a Red Bull. Anyways, Mountain Dew technically beat G Fuel to the gamer market, often releasing limited-time flavors or special packaging alongside the release of a hyper-anticipated new game, such as the Halo 3 Mountain Dews, the holy grail of all beverages. And gamers around the US craved the sweet flavors and high caffeine content. G Fuel took this approach with a low-calorie and higher caffeine content energy drink and found a lot of success. Unlike the other energy drinks, G Fuel threw out the cool, sleek, and edgy aesthetics. Instead, having very colorful graphics, retro gaming characters such as Sonic and Pac-Man, and having silly internet references as the flavors, like this one. It's called clickbait. Isn't that cute? But G Fuel's most impressive marketing tactic would be sponsoring online celebrities, such as the FaZe Clan, and at the time, the most popular man on YouTube, PewDiePie, giving them their own signature drinks while using their likeness for marketing. In other words, they were the first brand to hire influencers, which, as we would see, would become the future. Now, I have to pause the energy drink timeline again here to talk about another distant cousin of the energy drink, called pre-workout powder. This is a whole different story that is equally as absurd, but to summarize it, gym lovers will often consume a rather harsh-tasting powder called pre-workout, which is often the exact same ingredient profile as an energy drink, just with some extra vitamins and amino acids in a powder form that you mix with water. Now, why bring up the energy drink's ugly little cousin? The exact date is hard to pin down, but in the past 10 to 12 years, fitness and with online gym culture have exploded to an extreme level. And when there is a sudden burst in popularity of anything, there is definitely money to be made off of it. Energy drink companies, of course, took notice of the newest booming market to over-caffeinate the masses in, but this time there was already competition. Those pesky pre-workout companies were stealing their money. And again, the big three would be late to the craze, with the exception of Monster, who had some skin in the game already with the wholly divine White Monster 0 calories. Ghost Energy, another newcomer, would arrive as both a pre-workout and energy drink, partnering with the disgusting candy brand Sour Patch Kids to sell to the younger generation of gym goers. The #1 pre-workout powder from your local Walmart, C4 Energy, would release its own energy drink as well. And as more brands came, there was almost a societal tolerance to the caffeine drinks, because ultimately they all offered the exact same thing. The same caffeine content, the same supplements, just with different flavors. Until one day, he showed up.
Welcome to the Bang Revolution, folks. We're doing a special.
This fucking psychopath is just as crazy as the drink he made. In 2012, Jack Owak founded Bang Energy with the tagline, "Fuel Your Destiny." The company sold supplements, pre-workouts, and its own signature energy drink. What sets them apart, you ask? Well, two things. One, they contained creatine, a supplement that helps aid in water retention for stronger muscles and is very common in the weightlifting community. And what was the other thing? They had 300 milligrams of caffeine in them. Yes, 300, 300. It was 2 regular energy drinks in 1 can. It was so much caffeine, in fact, that Bang had a warning on their drink saying you had to be 18 or older to drink it. But that didn't really match up with their target flavors, which they had over 30 of, some of which being cotton candy, sour apples, birthday cake, pretty much just Diet Coke flavored, and my personal favorite, Rainbow Unicorn, which kind of tasted like Skittles. Why do I know this? Because I was addicted to these things from 2019 to 2021, which was right in the middle of their popularity. People loved the 300 milligrams, the new flavors, the promise of super creatine, which, side note, Bang would get sued over that by Monster, and they were later exposed in court that they really didn't add any creatine to it, so it was just false advertising. Bang and their psychopath CEO were a hit. They had a bizarre guerrilla marketing campaign where they would pay influencers to just hold their cans while they talked. They wouldn't mention anything about it. They would just hold it, or they would have it in the background of videos. Bang also had their own DJ who made Bang-themed music.
Again, let's do it right.
And they were dominating the energy drink market. So who stepped up? A familiar face, but in disguise. In 2019, Rain Energy Drink would appear on the shelves, offering the same caffeine content, similar kiddie flavors, but with a "I eat broken glass for breakfast, tough as nails" aesthetic. A Spartan helmet for their logo, this tough font, dark metallic black cans that were textured to feel like a rock. They sponsored some athletes like the world's strongest men competitors, Eddie Hall or Hathorn Bjornstein, the mountain from Game of Thrones, triathletes, Tough Mudders, and pickleball. Okay, let's just ignore the last one. Pretty tough though, right? Almost kind of corny. Kind of edgy. Wait a second.
Just as we thought.
Monster Energy.
Rain was just a new Monster Energy drink product, and Monster was extremely unhappy with Bang taking their money away. Now, in the current year of 2025, you may notice a lack of these 300 milligram caffeine drinks. That's because they were causing health issues. Obviously, 300 milligrams is a lot of caffeine. Remember, these started out with just 50 milligrams. People sort of just wised up to it and realized that, okay, maybe 300 is just too much, and the conversation started to pop up of, are these energy drinks really safe to consume? And there was no direct link between Bang or Rain dishing out health issues, but it's not shocking when people are downing 4 or 5 of these things in one day. So this brings us to what I call the modern era of energy drinks, and the most recent rebrand of the industry. Energy drinks, but healthy. Energy drinks had shifted from the gym category of whatever this is, to a sort of wellness thing, largely due to Celsius, an older energy drink from the 2010s that heavily rebranded itself in 2021 and presented themselves as a healthy energy drink that helps with fat loss and recovery. They had these sleek, thin cans. They returned to natural tasting flavors, showing images of real fruit on the cans, and they had a different caffeine source coming from green tea, which was much different than most other drinks and aided to their kind of like yoga fitness influencer aesthetic. And again, Monster saw this and they started seething because they weren't making as much money as they could. They launched a non-carbonated coconut water-based green tea caffeine energy juice drink, that was a mouthful, as a response. And as those trends died down, we've returned to pretty much just baseline. Currently, White Monster is a huge meme and everyone loves them. Red Bulls are, still European. Everyone drinks them. And most energy drinks don't contain a near lethal level of caffeine anymore for the most part. There is now just an energy drink for everybody, no matter what you need to be overcaffeinated for. There's a flavor and a high caffeine content drink for you. So there you have it. A brief history of energy drinks, a brief overview and evolution of energy drinks up until this point in April 2025. Did you learn anything? Do you have a caffeine issue? Because I do, and I'm going to go buy a White Monster now, so bye-bye.